Hello, and you're watching Sharing Vietnam. So in my hand here is a book, a bestseller by New York Times. The book's named Startup Nation, the story about the miracle economy of Israel. So joining our discussion today is the ambassador of Israel. She's going to share with us her insights about the miracle economy of Israel as well as opportunities for Vietnam. But before we continue, please see a clip about the book.
According to StartupNationBook.com, the book Startup Nation, the story of Israel's economic miracle, addresses the trillion-dollar question. How is it that Israel, a country of 7.1 million, only 60 years old, surrounded by enemies in a constant state of war since its founding, with no natural resources, produce more startup companies than less peaceful and stable nations like Japan, China, India, Korea, Canada, and the UK? How is it that Israel has proportion attracted over twice as much as a venture capital investment as the US and 30 times as more than Europe? Its GDP per capita reached over $30,000 per person in 2011, ranking 26 globally despite its constant state of warfare. Dan Siner, co-author of the book and a former foreign policy official in the United States government, also comments.
Look, we go through 8 factors in the book. Let me just quickly focus on 2 or 3 of them. One is Israel's immigration and assimilation policies. The Israelis have very innovative policies in how they bend over backwards to bring people to their country from around the world. Israeli prime ministers run for office talking about how many immigrants they're going to get into the country. They don't view immigration as a burden, and they have some very innovative policies for assimilating them. Civilian research and development, they spend more as a percentage of their economy on R&D than any country in the world. And they have some very innovative ways for how they actually make that R&D funding matter. It's not just about spending, it's about how you make it matter to the startups and the companies using it. And the role of the military, Joe, is like amazing. These young 18-year-olds go into the military when they finish high school. Males serve for 3 years, females serve for 2 years. They get the most incredible leadership and entrepreneurial experience in the battlefield, and the entire economy knows how to read a military resume. Investors, CEOs of companies, when these guys come out of the military, they know how to integrate them and their battlefield experience into the economy, and the U.S. does not know how to do that.
Besides the 2 main factors to explain Israel's miraculous success, which are mandatory military service and immigration, the book also introduced a notion of hot pass, characteristics of Israeli people, to the readers. Hot pass means extremely bold, direct, fearless, daring, and never give up. The book is published in Vietnamese language in June 2013 and is widely introduced to the audiences through the cooperation of Israeli Embassy in Vietnam, Trung Nguyên Coffee Corporation, Orca, Vinapo, and Alpha Books.
And you're back to Sharing Vietnam. So, Mrs. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here.
How many percent of the success do you attribute it to the chutzpah culture or characteristics of Israeli people?
It's hard to talk about percentage. I think it's a combination of several features, several opportunities, and as I said, also government policies. Yes, you do have the Israeli character of chutzpah, of daring, of speaking your own mind. That's mainly it, speaking your own mind and not being afraid. And if you have a good idea, you will take it and you will follow it, and you will find someone to invest at the end. It won't be easy. It's never easy. It is never easy. Mm-hmm. But you also, of course, have the policies that have led to the integration of the immigration of so many engineers that have immigrated. You have the policies of investment in research and development, the highest in the world compared to our GDP. And But so it is a combination of character, of policies, of opportunities, of understanding that the Israeli market is a very small market. We are only 8 million people today. We don't
Yes.
have a local market like in Vietnam. You have a local market. We don't have it. Everything we invent, everything we produce must be exported. And not to our immediate neighbors. As you know, the situation in Israel, the geopolitical situation around us
Yeah.
is a very a complicated one, a very complicated, which means we need to export to far away destinations. So everything is taking into account when one comes up with the innovation, with the idea, with the funding.
Or in general, you agree with the idea that a country needs to cultivate a startup culture and innovative culture for it to success, right?
I do agree with them very much. And we are proof, but you can see it on the national level, but also in the individual level. I'll tell you something else that is very prominent in the book is not fearing a failure. We've had many startups that have failed, but those very same people continue immediately to the next startup. They take what they've learned from the failure in the first one, and they implement all the lessons learned in the next innovation they have. And it's no shame to fail.
Yes.
You only have to try to continue and try again.
Yes. So you have to be not afraid of failure.
That's it.
Failure.
And
That's
it's
it.
not always easy, because people naturally are afraid of failure. But you have to nurture an environment that will enable you, okay, you failed, you move on.
Yes.
You take what you've learned and you implement it in the next project,
Yes.
and nothing bad happens.
Yes, as I read somewhere in the book that you don't encourage the person too much when they success, but don't blame him too much when he fails. Right?
Absolutely, that's exactly that.
So Vietnam and Israel have totally different demographics, as well as natural environments.
Yes.
So what do you think, or what do you expect Vietnamese audiences or Vietnamese readers to learn from Israel after reading the book? What can they get from the book? Like, what do you think?
It's true that we are very different in demography and different environment and natural resources. But I think also Vietnamese, like Israelis, are very entrepreneurial people. I've been here almost 10 months. And as we've discussed before, there's always something going, people creating things and new things, and I find many similarities in that to the Israelis. And I've seen it also when I was here 22 years ago. It was a very different Vietnam when I traveled here in 1991. But even then, you would have small things that popped up all the time. Vietnam was opening up at the time, and it was wonderful to see it. It was wonderful to see it, and I've seen it in the south and I've seen it in the north. But I do hope that what they take from the book, first of all, that they learn more about who we are, who are these Israelis, and that once you have a good idea, I think the key message is that the ability to dare. Not to, yes, you will always have obstacles, but as I've said, you need to know how to overcome them, and to rely on yourself and to be confident enough. If people are trying to stop you, you have a good idea, you find the funding, you find the people that will believe in your dream. We've seen it here with many innovators, but I think the greatest innovator is my president. Once again, he's 90 years old, 90, celebrating his birthday next week. And he's been always, since very young age, a dreamer, an innovator, but also a dreamer. He was able to pull people to believe in his dreams and to believe in his ideas and invest in his ideas, as we've seen in the book and in many of the innovations. So I think it's the ability to learn, to dare, this chutzpah a little bit, to speak your own mind, and even in face of authority, to say what you think. And
Yes.
During the book's launching ceremony in Vietnam, Đặng Lê Nguyên Vũ, chairman of Trung Nguyên Group, Nguyễn Hồng Trường, vice president of IDG Ventures Vietnam, and Mr. Trần Trọng Thành, chairman of Vinapo Online Service Joint Stock Company, which owns the Aleza ebook system, share the contents of the book, which sheds light on the seemingly impossible success of small country of Israel. According to BaoMới.com, Mr. Đặng Lê Nguyên Vũ shares that in his research for success principles, Israel was the nation that caught most of his attention. He said that this country had its own methods and manners that Vietnam should take as a reference. No one can succeed without innovation. It is especially true for Israel, a country with no natural resources, but only human resources. For them, creative is a life force, he said. It's time for us to change our thinking, to see adversity as a success rather than trying to escape it. Mr. Trần Trọng Thành brought a story. The Israelis are very proud of the two Jews, three opinions idea, which is also the name of a famous book in this country. Why Vietnamese people say, 9 people withstand ideas to blame disunity. Criticism is encouraged in Israel, but in nation, the Israelis adhere to the collective agreement. These contrasting characteristics create an ideal condition for economic development.
So individual determination is very important. But another important thing is the policy to encourage that kind of spirit. So based on what your experience as the ambassador of Israel,
yes,
and your experience encountering with the Vietnamese people and culture, what do you suggest the public policy could be like to encourage that kind of innovative and fearless spirit in people?
Well, personal determination, as you said, is key, certainly. But of course, when you look at the education system, it's also a key. And I know that today you have companies who are encouraging it very much in the private sector, cultivating this startup or a very motivated young generation that to think outside the box. I think that's the key. Although I have to say, a generation is not only an age. As I said, my president is 90 years old and he's the youngest of all of us. His mind is always going on new invention and new invention. So he shows us that you don't have to be 20 or 30 to think very differently. To think very differently. And I know that in this country you have the same. You have very entrepreneurial nature, as I've said, very open-minded, and I think that's a great thing, and I think we share it in common, and I hope individuals who read the book will enjoy it, will learn something about us, but also, it will make them think,
Yes.
In this 20th year anniversary of diplomatic relations between Vietnam and Israel, the publishing of the book is one of many efforts to make both countries know more about each other and to bring the two countries closer to each other. Her Excellency Miss Ambassador of Israel in Vietnam, Mirav Elon Shara, also shares exciting and future cooperations between the two countries. Each year, Vietnam has 700 students going to Israel to learn practical agriculture. There are programs to bring Vietnamese journalists to Israel. Israel's Medical Cloud, a technology to help doctors, nurses to communicate better with the patients, is being implemented in Vietnam. Besides other technologies to stress water issues and to raise dairy cattle, an Israeli demonstration farm has already been established in Ho Chi Minh City. In June and July 2013, delegations led by Vietnamese ministers to Israel promised to promote future trade and cooperation.
So, Mrs. Ambassador, thank you very much for your time today.
Thank you very much for hosting me.
And that ends our show for today. Thank you very much for watching Sharing Vietnam. So if you have any questions or comments, please don't hesitate to send us an email at sharingvietnam@vtc.vn. I'm Jasmine and see you in our next program.